Hello and welcome back to my channel and to my BBC Shakespeare retrospective. And today we've reached Henry V. Everyone likes Henry V, isn't it? This is the crowd pleaser, when you can cheer for the English against the French. It's Shakespeare's great propaganda play. Here, finally, is a king he can get behind, a really successful avatar of great kingship. In his history plays, as we've seen with Richard II and with the Henry IV, he's always investigating good kingship, right? Now, in those, there was conflicts. But in this one, he wants to show that this is how a king should be. Even though historically, really, Henry V, what did he do? He won the Battle of Agincourt, he beat the French, but he wasn't on the throne for very long. He didn't really achieve that much. But we've made him into one of these kind of fake heroes, haven't we, like Richard I and Winston Churchill. That's a joke. It's also worth noting that Shakespeare glosses over the true history of the Battle of Agincourt. It wasn't really, won by English bravery and a bunch of hardy little Brits against a massive group of French. It was won by strategy and tactics. If I remember my schoolboy history well enough, basically the English sort of decimated the first wave of the French cavalry using these big sort of sticks that were stuck in the ground and with the archers. And that's really how it was run. Once more into the breach, dear friends, is great, but really what it was about was tactics and smart. But this presents Shakespeare with a problem. How do you make a glowing, nice panegyric very dramatically interesting? Now, with these other history plays, because of the problem of kingship and because of conflicts within the state, they are effectively tragedies. Richard II is a tragedy. So what he does here is he turns it into a comedy. Right? So it actually ends not with a battle, but with the marriage to the Queen of France. That rather odd scene at the end where he's wooing her in a rather odd way, and she's kind of responding and kind of isn't. It's a rather odd ending to a history play. But it's to make him seem like a thoroughly nice chap. He's beaten the French, and now he's going to get married to a lovely woman, and he knows how to woo her. Very odd. And then what he does all the way through is he sets up little conflicts that are comic. So we have this dreadful running theme of the Welshman, the wars, the Greek wars and all that stuff. Oh, it's so, I can't do my Welsh accent, by the way. It's so boring, isn't it? And you get the Scots guy and the Irish guy and this kind of propagandistic thing of getting the four, nations of the British Isles working together. And you get all these kind of, the conflicts where at night, the best scene actually, where Henry V, again, the troubled by sleep, the king is troubled by sleep, goes out amongst his men, and he has a little quarrel with this guy, and then he wears the glove in his hat, and then eventually that conflict is resolved, and he just gives him loads of money. So there's all these kind of mini conflicts that are set just to kind of keep the play going. It gives it a rather odd feeling, And what Shakespeare does is he kind of gets the conflict out of the way. So right at the beginning, there are three traitors in the state, and he dismisses them, he dispatches them in one big scene at the beginning, which is a very brilliantly written scene, and it's very well played in this production, but it's kind of like getting it out of the way. That would have been the substance of the previous history plays, but the substance becomes a long extended battle with lots of comedy bits in it. But even then, it's kind of odd how Shakespeare treats the situation. So Falstaff is dismissed. We don't even see him at the beginning. We hear about his death, but that's it, he's not seen. His hangers-on, like Pistol and Bardolph, they go off into this battle, and they have sort of comic scenes, but they're dealt with rather horribly. Bardolph apparently is executed for stealing from a church. Pistol goes off to become a thief. And Nym, as far as I'm aware, we don't even hear of ever again. We just never see him again. Shakespeare rather, in a mercenary fashion, in a ruthless fashion, just gets rid of these comic characters. Almost gets rid of the world of Falstaff completely. And he does strange things. Like, for example, the most horrible scene in Henry V is the scene when the French massacre the boys who are looking after the supply chain. A really devastating scene. And he juxtaposes it with the Welshman going on about the wars of Alexander the Great. I still can't do the Welsh accent. With the scene with the apple. You think, what's going on here? The truth is, much as I like this play, it's a very likeable play, and much as though I love Shakespeare, a dramatist, a student of dramaturgy might think, what are you doing here? This is very, very odd. So ultimately, I would say that this is a middling play from Shakespeare. And I'm going to say that this is a middling to average production, actually. One of the ones that has least impressed me so far. David Gwilym continues to be absolutely brilliant as Henry V. I think he's up there with Olivier and Kenneth Branagh. I think it's a really good performance. He shows all the aspects of the character and really keeps the production going. There's not many other great performances in this production. The two best actors are given two really minor roles. I mean, you've got Alec McCowan, a brilliant speaker of the verse, as the chorus. Which he does superbly, by the way. And actually, I love the way David Giles directs this. Interestingly, for such a proud, tub-thumping, propagandistic play, he starts and ends the production in total silence. McCowan comes on in darkness, and then as he says, I'm introducing you the scene to you, the lights come on and he's walking through the cast all suspended, all still. I think that's a brilliant touch. And it also brought home a very interesting idea that runs through the play, that Shakespeare into the play, of making the little seem large. So, the chorus says to you, look, we've only got a few players, we've only got a small stage, you've got to use your imagination. This is what Olivier in his film, capitalised on so brilliantly. So you go from the tiny Globe Theatre, and then it expands outwards into more cinematic territory. I think Olivier does that very well in the film. And that's what the chorus is about. And of course, this is going to be a theme that runs through the play. So when we have the traitors against Henry, there's only 3 of them. So in fact, they embody a whole, line of thinking amongst the English nobles that perhaps this is not the right thing to do. And it's interesting how Shakespeare points this up, doesn't he? Because right at the beginning, Henry V, this great king apparently, goes to war on a trifle. We have 2 priests, wonderfully played by Trevor Baxter and John Abernethy, 2 great British character actors, quibbling about whether they should tell him or not, and how they should get involved in this quarrel between him and France. So it's a trifle that Henry V goes to war on, and he seems to know it, and yet he's this great king. Anyway, I've got to leave this, haven't I? I've just got to leave it. And then, of course, this theme of the little representing the big comes to embody the main theme of the war against France, as we happy few, this tiny band of Englishmen, takes on this huge state of France. Julian Glover is just the Constable of France. He's the best actor on stage apart from David Gwilym, and he's in this tiny little role. A lot of the other actors are average at best. I mean, the boy is terrible. I think Thorley Walters is surprisingly bad as the King of France, I'm going to be honest. I don't think he's at all believable or credible in that part. And many of the other parts, well, Jocelyn Boisseau, an actress I wasn't familiar with, is very charming as the French Queen. Isn't that scene odd? I've always thought it's very odd, that scene, that little bit of comedy in the middle of the play, about the C word. Bizarre. Shakespeare talking about the C word. I can never get over that. But anyway, she handles that scene very nicely, and the end wooing scene with Henry is lovely as well. But the rest of the cast, I think, are rather average. Not very memorable. And I kind of feel that way about the entire production. I like the way that David Giles handles the chorus scenes with Alec McCowan, and the staging of that I think is very clever. I think he mishandles the Once More into the Breach speech very badly. But then the St. Crispin's Day speech is great. You can't mess that up. I mean, that's one of the great speeches in Shakespeare. So what I'm going to say is an average production of a likeable but not brilliant play. Okay, next time is Twelfth Night. Thanks very much.